Hello and welcome to another tutorial here at Capox Productions. My name is David. Today I'm really excited because we're actually starting the first in like a little mini series entitled Instantly Better at Fingerstyle Guitar. Maybe future David, when you're editing this, you can really ramp up the production value there. Instantly better at Fingerstyle Guitar. Wow. Okay. Maybe I need to work on my editing chops a little bit, whatever. That's not the topic of discussion today. Basically in this series, pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to show you some tricks of the trade that I've learned playing the guitar that I really feel add a lot of professionalism to your playing, and really it's just going to bump you up a couple of percentage points generally. And the cool thing is they're really, really easy to do. They're not going to take tons of practicing, thus instantly in the title of this course. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. All right, let's talk a little bit about string splitting. So what exactly is string splitting? Instead of playing two notes together like this, what you're gonna do is play the bass note fractionally before the upper note like this. And what this achieves is you're creating a little bit of a separation between the bass part and the melody part. Remember, if we're playing fingerstyle guitar or classical guitar, typically you're not just gonna have the melody. You're going to have multiple parts, sometimes percussion, sometimes an accompanying figure, sometimes a bass part. And what we're doing here, by separating the bass part and the melody, we're creating this nice clarity between the melody and the accompanying figure below. And it really gives this impression that there's almost two instruments playing together, which I think is really effective. So this little example that I'm using, Can't Help Falling in Love With You by Elvis, I really encourage you, get the tabs on my Patreon page. You can see the link in the description. There's also a full tutorial of this and it's really, really worthwhile. And of course you'd be supporting me, which I'd greatly appreciate. So let's talk a little bit about this example. I'm going to show a couple of excerpts below and you can follow those. And you can also see how it's physically written if you are writing out tabs. You'll notice that the very first bar, there's like a little small 3 right before that's tied into, there would be another 3 directly below the 1. So that 3 is going to continue ringing for the length of the bar, but it's just going to be played again, just slightly before the 1. In bar 2, you'll notice there's no string splitting at all. And then in bar 3, there's again, I use this feature. Bar 4. Bar 5, nothing, and then again into bar 6. Now the idea here is that instead of using it all of the time, which can be super dangerous, I use it kind of like sparingly, just occasionally to create this kind of separation. If you do it all of the time, you run the risk of really disrupting the melody. Instead of feels a little bit like, okay dude, what are you doing? So be careful about how often you use it, but really you can take any piece of music, and you can experiment to see what it would sound like. For example, let's try Faded by Alan Walker. That's a really popular piece. Let's see what it would sound like with a little bit of string splitting. Immediately, it just adds this extra dimension that you didn't have before. And all I'm doing is just slipping the bass note in just a fraction before I play the melody. That does mean that the bass note is going to come early. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, just before, making sure that the higher note, the melody note, lands on the beat. You don't want to disrupt the rhythm of the music that you're playing. You want to make sure that the rhythm falls exactly where it needs to be. And that means that the bass note has to come just a little bit earlier than it normally would. Another example I can think of, a classical piece, Romance. Here you can start off by easing in. And I actually use this technique often if I'm jumping positions. And you need to buy yourself a little bit of time. You can play the bass note first and then the higher notes so that you allow your left hand to get into position. Most of the time, the bass note is going to be an open string, or often, so it'll allow you a little bit of time for your left hand to jump up. Especially here. is a great little guitar hack, playing that bass note just before you change position. Again, I would be very, very careful about how often you use this and where you use it. That's why it's really good to record yourself and listen to the music back to hear, man, is this actually effective? Is this working musically, or am I just using this to get out of trouble? Be very, very careful with where you use this note splitting. And in classical music, I think there are a lot of purists who are like, you shouldn't use it unless it's explicitly written in the music. So that's something to consider as well. All right, I think that's just about everything there is to string splitting. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, comments, leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Keep it real, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.